Hello and welcome to the sixth and final episode of History of Anime. Last episode we looked at the 1990s, so this episode we're going to be looking at the 2000s and the 2010s. This episode is going to be a bit different from the other episodes. Normally shows tend to take quite a while to become influential or important, so many shows that I'm going to be talking about in this episode might not have reached their full potential, despite being out for a number of years already. The last decade has also been extremely different in terms of how anime is distributed and viewed. With the growth of the internet and worldwide connection, anime has become more than just something that's played on Japanese TV. One of the biggest developments has been the explosion of high-budget films coming out each year, starting in 2001 with a number of massive titles. Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away was released in 2001 to massive success. When it released, it made more than 30 billion yen, becoming the most successful Japanese film of all time, and still holds that title today. Like most other Ghibli films of its time, Spirited Away was very popular overseas, making millions of dollars from the various countries it was shown in. Satoshi Kon also released a film in 2001 under the name of Millennium Actress. Like his other films, it was praised by critics worldwide for its unique production. Unfortunately, the film was not nearly as successful as Spirited Away. A follow-up to one of the most important shows from the last episode was released in 2001 as well, Cowboy Bebop the movie. Despite being attached to a TV series that didn't have the best of starts, it became a success, making over $3 million worldwide. As you can see, movies were coming into a time where freedom was available for everyone who could make something good enough. There was no longer a set formula that studios had to follow to receive funding. This carried on throughout the decade. During the 90s, the real robot genre had a brief comeback, but if you can remember, it never gained enough popularity to completely bring the genre back. In 2002, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed was released to huge success, both when it was aired on TV and when it had its physical release. It's still to this day one of the best-selling anime releases of all time. This time, the real robot genre was back to stay, as real robot shows were released throughout the decade to great success. Shows like Eureka 7, Code Geass and Macross Frontier became some of the most successful shows of the decade. Anime adaptations started to really become popular during this period. Manga, light novels and eroge were all adapted into anime TV series and movies. One of the early successes was Canon in 2002, an adaptation of an eroge. It was one of the decade's early examples of moe anime, something we'll be talking about quite a lot in this episode. It was then adapted again by another studio in 2006 to greater success. The successful Ghost in the Shell franchise would be busy over the next few years with a TV series and a sequel movie. The TV series was released in 2002 as Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. It was very successful and sold very well. There was also a second season 2 years later in 2004 that sold even more. Also in 2004 was the sequel to the 1995 movie, Ghost in the Shell 2: Innocence. The movie was successful, especially in America where it made over $300,000 in its opening weekend. More moe hit the scene in 2006, with shows like Lucky Star, Haruhi Suzumiya and the KyoAni adaptation of the aforementioned Canon. Many of these series became extremely popular, especially Haruhi Suzumiya, that became one of the most successful anime releases of all time. Haruhi also became one of the shows that pushed the otaku culture worldwide, as the show became massively popular in other countries. An interesting commentary on the growing otaku culture was released in the same year. Welcome to the NHK looked at many problems from modern Japan, like suicide and hikikomoris. One of the highlights of the 90s, Evangelion, returned in the form of a new film series in 2007. Titled Rebuild of Evangelion, Hideaki Anno and his new studio, Studio Kara, kicked off the series of very successful films that have yet to conclude. As of now, there are 3 films, and a 4th is expected soon. Gurren Lagann was released in 2008 to massive success under the super robot genre from the 70s. Like the real robot genre, the super robot genre was brought back to the modern audience to great sales. The very popular Haruhi Suzumiya franchise returned in 2010 with the movie release of The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya. It was a box office success and sold very well for its Blu-ray release. One of the more recent successful series is Attack on Titan that took the whole industry by storm. With the online streaming industry growing, Attack on Titan became massively popular overseas on services like Netflix and Crunchyroll. Its online success is a great look into the kind of shows we'll be seeing in the future, and a good example of how an anime can break into the Western television market. The Wind Rises was released by Studio Ghibli, and was Miyazaki's self-proclaimed last film. The following year, Studio Ghibli halted production. Poor sales were credited for this. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Obviously it would have been impossible to mention everything in the last decade or so, as the amount of anime being produced has soared in the last 15 years. Despite the criticism modern anime receives, you can't deny that the industry has changed and grown so much in the last 15 years. The amount of freedom creators are given to create new and experimental anime is more than ever before. Sure, sales haven't been soaring in the last few years, but anime is changing, and for the good. With the birth of the internet and growing technology of computers, anime has all the potential in the world to turn into an even bigger industry. Like we saw with Attack on Titan, shows now have the opportunity and potential to reach a broader audience with the help of Netflix and other streaming services. I'm very eager to see where the industry will be in the next 10 years. So that's been the history of anime. It's been very enjoyable reading up about anime to produce these videos. I've learned quite a lot while doing these. I created these videos with the goal of making a single accessible location for anyone to come and learn about the history of Japanese animation. I hope I did a good job. If you did enjoy this series, I would really appreciate it if you could share it around with your friends or fellow anime viewers. I put a lot of time and effort into making this series, so if you can support my channel by sharing, clicking the like button and subscribing, I would be very happy. But most of all, thank you very much for watching.